Okay, so I want you to picture a really specific scenario for a second. You are, well, you're the most powerful man in the known world.
Right.
You are the Roman emperor. You've got absolute authority, literal legions at your command, wealth beyond imagination. And you are sitting in a tent on the freezing northern frontier, surrounded by war. You decide to open a journal, a private notebook just for yourself. What do you write about?
Usually you'd expect a list of conquests, maybe.
Yeah, or planning your next massive monument, maybe just ranting about your political enemies.
But if you are Marcus Aurelius, apparently you don't do any of those things. You write a thank you note.
Exactly. And that is the paradox we are exploring today. Welcome to our deep dive into Book 1 of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And honestly, looking at the source material right off the bat, it's not really a book in the traditional sense, is it?
No, not at all. And that's the first thing we really need to clarify to understand what we're looking at here. Meditations was never meant for publication. The original title translates roughly to himself. In Book 1 specifically, it reads like a ledger.
Like an accounting book.
Exactly, an accounting book. But instead of tracking money or, debts to the imperial treasury, he is tracking his own character.
An accounting of spiritual debts.
Precisely. The central theme here, and this is really the key insight for you as you're listening to this, is that Marcus didn't believe his character was innate. He didn't think he was just born good or born a brilliant leader. He believed his personality was constructed, piece by piece, by the people around him.
It's almost like a recipe for a human being. Like, grab a pinch of patience from this guy, a cup of discipline from that guy.
That's a great way to put it. In Book 1, he is meticulously listing exactly what he owes to whom. He breaks the whole thing down. Parents, tutors, friends, and finally the gods. It is this incredibly intimate look at how a philosopher king is built from the ground up.
So we are going to unpack this entire construction project today. We'll look at the virtues he pulled from his family, the really rigorous training from his tutors, the social grace he picked up from friends, the massive influence of his adoptive father, and then those final philosophical exercises.
It's a fantastic roadmap for life, honestly.
It really is. So let's start where he starts. The foundation, family. The very first entry in the journal is about his grandfather, Verus. And I love the first two words he associates with his grandfather, gentle and meek.
It is striking, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about a Roman leader here. Meekness today might sound like a weakness.
Right, like being a pushover.
Yeah, but in this context, especially coupled with the phrase freedom from anger, it's entirely about control. It is about not being volatile.
Because a weak, volatile emperor wouldn't last 5 minutes. So meekness here is more like keeping your sword in the sheath.
Exactly. It's possessing the absolute capacity for violence or dominance, but choosing gentleness instead. It's controlled strength.
Makes sense. Then he moves right to his biological father. Now, his dad died when Marcus was very young, so he actually notes that he learned this from the fame and memory of him. And he lists shamefastness and manlike behavior.
Shamefastness is such a fantastic old word. It essentially means modesty, a deep sense of propriety.
Like an internal alarm system.
Right, the alarm that goes off when you're about to do something embarrassing or unethical. And then the manlike behavior he mentions refers to courage and robustness. So from that father figure, he takes this archetype of physical strength mixed with a very strict internal modesty.
But then we get to the mother. And this is where the source material gets incredibly specific and sets a very high bar. She taught him to be religious and bountiful, meaning generous. But there's a nuance here regarding evil.
This is one of the highest bars set in the entire text.
No.
It wasn't enough for his mother to just teach him to avoid doing evil. She taught him to avoid even the intention of evil.
Wow.
Yeah, to keep the mind so pure that you don't even secretly wish for bad things to happen to your enemies.
That is next level discipline. That's literally thought policing yourself.
It is. And she also taught him about lifestyle. Marcus notes that she lived a spare diet. She completely avoided the excess incidental to great wealth.
Even though they were loaded.
Exactly. Despite being incredibly wealthy, she chose to live simply. And that had a massive impact on how he viewed imperial luxury later on.
Speaking of wealth, his great-grandfather comes in with a very practical lesson about money and education. He basically says, do not send your kids to public schools.
He really does. He says to avoid frequenting public schools. But the lesson there wasn't about being antisocial or elite. It was about the absolute value of targeted mentorship.
Right.
The lesson was to get good, able teachers at home. And the key takeaway he writes down is to be willing to spend excessive charges on this without hesitation.
So when it comes to education, just open the wallet.
Don't even blink. If you have the resources, investing in your own mind or your children's education is the one place you absolutely shouldn't look for a bargain.
So that is the family foundation right there. Modesty, simplicity, generosity, and very expensive private tutors. Which leads us perfectly into the second part of our deep dive, the tutors, what the text calls the hard school.
And the first figure he mentions here is simply referred to as him that brought me up, usually understood to be his governor or his main childhood tutor.
And the lesson here is shockingly relevant to anyone listening today who follows sports or politics.
Oh, absolutely. He says he learned not to be addicted to the chariot factions, the Prasini and the Venetti, the Greens and the Blues.
And not to take sides with the gladiators either, right? The Parmulari and Secutors.
Yes. People would literally riot over these teams. They would kill each other in the streets over which color won a chariot race. His tutor taught him a crucial lesson for a leader. Stay neutral. Do not get sucked into the tribalism.
Advice I think we all could use on the internet today. He also notes he learned endurance of labor, and this is a big one, to do it myself rather than by others.
Total self-reliance. And he adds, not to admit of any slander. Basically, don't be a receptacle for gossip. If someone comes to you whispering about someone else, you shut it down immediately.
Then we meet a guy named Diognetus. This seems to be where the actual philosophy kicks in for young Marcus. What's the main takeaway from him?
Diognetus taught him to avoid vain things. Specifically, he lists sorcerers, miracle workers, and ghost stories. He was taught to look at the world rationally, not through a lens of superstition.
And there's that really funny specific note he includes, not to keep quails for the game.
Right. Quail fighting was a very popular gambling pastime back then, kind of like cockfighting. Diognetus essentially taught him that it was a complete waste of time. But Diognetus also introduced the physical discipline. This is where Marcus mentions the little couch and skins.
Sleeping on the floor, basically.
Yes, the traditional Greek discipline, roughing it. Even as a wealthy Roman youth who could have slept on the finest silk, he practiced living with intentional discomfort.
But the real heavy hitter among the teachers seems to be Rusticus. The text literally says Rusticus was the one who made him realize his character needed redress and cure. That sounds pretty intense.
Rusticus was the ultimate reality check. He stopped Marcus from becoming a sophist.
A sophist being someone who just argues for show.
Exactly. Someone who writes fancy, overly complex speeches just to impress people. Rusticus taught him to avoid all that sophistry and to write simple, unaffected letters.
Like the one from Sinuessa mentioned in the text.
Precisely, just straightforward communication. And to read with diligence, Rusticus taught him not to be satisfied with superficial knowledge. You don't just skim the surface, you go incredibly deep. And perhaps the greatest gift of all, Rusticus gave Marcus his own copy of Epictetus's writings.
The grandfather of Stoicism for him. So he's got the family foundation, he's got the strict discipline from the tutors. Now we move into our third theme, social grace. Because an emperor has to deal with people constantly.
And this section is an absolute masterclass in emotional intelligence. He starts with Apollonius. This is where he learned steadfastness.
Being the same man.
Right, being the exact same person in sharp pain and the loss of a child or in a lingering sickness. Total consistency. But Apollonius also taught him a very tricky social dynamic, how to receive favors from friends.
That is tough. How to accept help without making it weird.
It is. The text says he learned how to receive favors without becoming obnoxious, meaning subservient or groveling, but also without being unthankful or brushing it off. It's about accepting help with actual dignity.
Then we have Sextus. He's presented as the model of the benevolent family man. He had gravity without affectation, but the specific note here that I love is about idiots.
The text actually says how to accommodate himself to all men and not to be offended with idiots or unlearned men. The entire point is tolerance. Sextus was so pleasant that just being around him was better than flattery, yet he still commanded total respect. And he mastered the Stoic concept of apatheia.
Which means what, exactly? Because it sounds like apathy.
It sounds like it, but it means unpassionateness.
What?
Not a lack of feeling, but a lack of volatile, uncontrollable emotion.
Yeah.
The text says he was most exactly to observe unpassionateness, and yet to be most tender-hearted. He wasn't a cold robot. He was totally calm, but deeply kind.
I really like the advice he gets from Alexander the grammarian. This is basically for anyone who has that friend who always corrects your grammar.
Oh, this is brilliant tact. The lesson is, if someone makes a mistake, a solecism, as he called it, do not rudely correct them. Do not say, hey, you said that wrong.
So what are you supposed to do? Let them sound foolish?
No. You answer them And in your answer, you just organically use the correct phrasing. You confirm their point using the right words by way of answer without drawing any attention to their mistake. It is correction by confirmation.
That is incredibly smooth. Next up is Fronto, and his lesson is a bit darker, more of a political observation.
Fronto was a rhetoric teacher, but you're right, the lesson was entirely political. He taught Marcus to observe that tyranny inevitably leads to envy and hypocrisy. And he makes a really cutting observation about the upper class, that the nobly born are often completely void of natural affection.
Basically saying the elites lack heart.
Exactly.
Moving to Alexander the Platonic, this one definitely hit home for me. It's about time management and relationships.
Yes. The lesson is simple. Don't tell people I am not at leisure unless it is absolutely necessary. Don't use being busy or having urgent affairs as an excuse to neglect your duties to your friends. If you care about a relationship, you make the time. Busy is not a valid excuse.
I feel personally called out by a Roman emperor on that one. Finally, in this section, we have Catullus, and this is all about conflict resolution.
Right. If a friend complains to you, even if their complaint is totally unjust or unfair, don't just brush them off. The text says to strive to reduce him to his former disposition.
Meaning, fix the relationship even if you think you're in the right. And he mentions praising masters and having true love for children.
Exactly.
So we've got the social skills down. Now, let's look at the model leader. Segment 4 of our roadmap, we have his brother, Severus, and his adoptive father, the Emperor Antoninus Pius. Severus really seems to be the political idealist here.
Severus is where Marcus gets his overarching vision of the state. He talks about an equal commonwealth administered by justice, a kingdom that prioritizes the welfare and liberty of its subjects above all else.
Which is a completely radical thought for a Roman autocrat.
Unheard of. And he also notes that Severus was bountiful and liberal and optimistic about his friend's love. Severus didn't play paranoid political games. He was open.
Then you have Claudius Maximus. This is pure self-control. The key phrase he writes here is power of myself. Never to be carried about by circumstances, and to remain cheerful even in severe sickness.
But the absolute big one, the longest and most detailed tribute in the entire book, is for his adoptive father, Antoninus Pius. This is clearly his ultimate role model.
It's a massive tribute. He just lists trait after trait, meekness, unshakable constancy in decisions. But look at what he says about vanity.
Antoninus was completely indifferent to honors. He didn't build massive building projects just to slap his name on them. He didn't give out congiaries, which were these big public handouts or doles, just for the glory of it. He didn't care about the PR.
And his work ethic, he calls it laboriousness. The text says he would hear every man out and demand accurate examination of details. He was never satisfied with sudden notions.
He actually did the hard work. And he took care of himself, too. There's a fascinating note that he took care of his body not to be beautiful, but so that he rarely needed medicine. It was pure practicality.
I really loved the bit about his social habits. He didn't force his friends to dine with him. He didn't force them to travel with him. If they had other stuff to do, he let them do it. He wasn't a needy boss.
He respected their time. He was neither superstitious regarding the gods nor an ambitious pleaser of men. And then Marcus explicitly compares him to Socrates.
Yes. The highest compliment a Stoic could give.
Without a doubt. He says Antoninus had the rare ability to abstain from luxuries that most men are too weak to resist, but also the ability to enjoy them without excess when they were available. He wasn't an ascetic show-off. He was perfectly balanced.
It's a beautiful portrait of a leader. Now, shifting gears for segment 5. We have thanked the people. Now Marcus takes time to thank the gods. And this section reads like a giant list of near misses, like, thank you, universe, that I didn't completely ruin my life here.
It really does. He attributes his good family and his excellent teachers to the gods, to providence. But then he gets into the very personal bullets he dodged.
Like the sexual discipline stuff. He says, thank you that I was not long brought up by the concubine of my father, and that he preserved the flower of his youth and didn't rush into manhood too early.
He's profoundly grateful for his self-control. He implies that rushing into adult indulgences early on ruins your character. He also explicitly mentions not having to deal with Benedicta and Theodotus.
Who were they? Does the text say?
The text doesn't explicitly say who they were, but contextually, these are almost certainly people he was deeply infatuated with or lustful towards at some point. He is thanking the gods that he didn't get helplessly entangled with them, and that when he did fall into love fits, he was cured of them quickly.
He also thanks the gods for his wife. He calls her obedient, loving, and ingenuous, just simple and honest. And there's that note about avoiding family drama, too, that he didn't offend his family despite his own potential for a bad temper.
And don't forget the medical intervention. He actually thanks the gods for the help he received via dreams for his spitting of blood and his dizziness.
There's a reference to Cajeta there, right?
Yes, exactly. He viewed his health management and those remedies at Cajeta as direct divine assistance.
And there's one final near miss he mentions regarding philosophy itself.
Right. He is so grateful that when he started studying philosophy, he didn't fall into the hands of the sophists, the fakers, and that he didn't waste his time analyzing meteors or natural curiosities. He focused on morals, not physics. He sees that focus as a divine mercy.
So that brings us to the final section, segment 6. And the tone here feels totally different. The gratitude list is basically done. Now, he is giving himself direct commands. The text notes this was written at Granua among the Quadi, so he's literally out on the freezing frontier, actively at war.
And he starts this section with one of the most famous passages in all of Stoic literature, the morning mantra.
Betimes in the morning say to thyself.
This day I shall have to do with an idle curious man, with an unthankful man, a railer, a crafty false, or an envious man.
It is such a remarkably pessimistic way to start the day. Just get ready, everyone you meet is going to be terrible today.
But wait for the turn, because he immediately says, all these ill qualities have happened unto them through ignorance of good and evil. He reframes it instantly. They aren't inherently evil, they are just confused. And then the real kicker, he is my kinsman.
Because we share the same divine spark reason.
Exactly. He says we are born to work together, like feet, like hands, like the rows of the upper and under teeth. To be angry at them is against nature. You can't be angry at your own teeth for biting, you just have to cooperate.
Then he does this brutal anatomical breakdown of himself. He basically says, define yourself as 3 parts: flesh, breath, and the ruling reason.
He dismisses the body completely, despise the flesh. Just blood, bones, and a network of nerves and veins. Breath is just wind sucked in and let out. He's telling himself, you are not your body. You are the ruling reason. That is the only critical part. Do not let it be enslaved by lusts or fears of the future.
And he wraps all of this up with a very heavy thought on providence versus atoms. Basically, everything that happens is either ordered by the gods or a result of natural flow. And it's all for the good of the whole.
Right. If it helps the universe, the whole, then it's inherently good for the part, which is you. Even fortune or luck connects to the whole. So accept what happens. It is necessary.
And that leads us right to the end of Book 1. And the text closes with a command that I found so unbelievably ironic, considering we are literally reading his book right now.
Away with thy books.
Yes. After pages of praising all his teachers, praising their influence, praising the books they gave him, he tells himself, suffer not thy mind anymore to be distracted. Away with thy books.
It's such a powerful ending. He's essentially saying to himself, you've done the reading, you've had the teachers, you know the theory. Now put the books down. The goal isn't to be a reader of virtue. The goal is to be virtuous, to actually live it.
So that thou die not murmuring and complaining, but truly meek and well satisfied. That's the ultimate goal.
It is. Book 1 establishes the foundation. It's the toolkit. He spends the entirety of the rest of the meditations using these specific tools: the patience, the simplicity, the refusal to complain, to survive the crushing pressures of being emperor. But he had to acknowledge exactly where he got the tools first.
It's incredible. He's not claiming to be a self-made man at all. He's a man recognizing he is a mosaic of everyone he has ever known.
That is the ultimate takeaway here.
So, here is a final provocative thought to leave you with today. Marcus Aurelius listed exactly what he took from each person in his life: grandfather, mother, tutors, friends. If you had to sit down right now and write your own Book 1, who would be on that list? And more importantly, would you be able to identify a specific positive virtue you adopted from each of them, or would you find you've simply absorbed their habits by accident?
That is the real question.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of the emperor. We'll catch you on the next one.